Hey, here we are, Sportsbet Betting Insight today, weekend preview edition. Pauly and Teddy, big game in the association. Heat and Raptors, and we'll get to the Yankees and the Orioles, plus the play of the day. We'll get to bad beats, bad bets, bad for the books in a second, but a conundrum for the books, Teddy, as Dustin Johnson did not start, didn't tee off yesterday at the Masters. Better beware. Some places it's action, other places it's a refund.
Yeah, and this is all in the fine print. You know, we talk a lot about handicapping and how to break down a game, and how to break down a matchup. And one thing that I wish we could talk more about is the concept of betting skills. But even good bettors don't always read the fine print on this stuff. The bottom line, at least here in Las Vegas, all right, the sportsbooks were split, basically. About half the sports books, you get a bet down, action is action. The other half the sports books, well, the fact that Johnson didn't take a single stroke means no action, and those bets get refunded. And we should call out the boy. You know, let's list them. I think that's the appropriate thing. David Purdom from ESPN.com Chalk did a great job and called up all the sportsbook to find out what they were doing. So we got a good list of who refunded the money: Westgate, South Point, Wynn, Golden Nugget, Station Casinos, all refunded. They were player-friendly rules. Other books, MGM, Boyd Gaming, the Coast Casinos, Caesars, Cantor, CG Technology, and William Hill all said action is action, and they kept those DJ wagers. So, you know, let's report it. That's what we're here to do. But we can editorialize here a little bit as well, Paulie, can't we?
I will not do that. I will not rip a sponsor.
No, I'm not going to go. I'm absolutely not going to rip the books that didn't, because it's not about ripping the books that didn't. It's about praising the books that did it right. It's about Westgate. You did it right. No surprise. South Point. You did it right. No surprise. Wynn. You did it right. No surprise. Let's give them credit for what they did. And, of course, it builds goodwill. And we're talking about goodwill in Las Vegas. No. Now, all of a sudden, Vegas stories are national stories. All right. This was front page of ESPN.com yesterday. All right. You know, I believe it was the second story at one point. So we're not talking about something that just people are buzzing around town talking about it. No. Sports betting is on the rise. And when books do the right thing in these instances, take a few dollars. You know, we're not talking about huge profits that they just put in their pockets off the DJ bets. Take a few bucks, refund it to the players. It's good PR, and it's good for the industry.
Yeah, and a big deal because he was the most bet on golfer in terms of tickets and money. And also this also comes down to Tiger Woods, too, who pulled out right before the Masters as well. So two big tickets were affected with what happened. Darren Ravel, what happened at Santa Anita?
Oh, my God. $1,119,286 with a pick six. Pick the winners in races 3 through 8 at Santa Anita. Now, the total amount bet on the ticket was more than $14,000. So we're not talking about someone putting a little chunk of change on a race or two. But when you're hitting a pick six and walking away with $1.1 million, hey, kudos to you. That's something, Paulie, I've never done. I don't think you have either.
14 grand on a ticket, Jesus. All right, bad bets. The Braves plus 160 down to 135. We talked about this big game breakdown yesterday. They were skeptical about Matt Harvey, but he was solid. Kemp hit 2 home runs. That was it. Only one other hit, and 56 of 78 pitches in the strike zone for Harvey.
Yeah, and you have to look at this as a very positive 2017 debut for Matt Harvey. That being said, they came against the Atlanta Braves, and even the Mets found a way to score some runs against that very spotty Braves pitching staff. But we won't see, I can tell you this, we're not going to see the steam coming against Harvey in his next start that we saw coming against him in his start last night. I was not surprised to see all that anti-Matt Harvey money, but the fact that he threw 56 of his 78 pitches for strikes, again, that anti-Harvey flood of money is not likely to come twice in a row.
All right, this is going to be a regular theme here. Bad for the books. We're going against the Padres. A 40-cent move on the Dodgers. Bet all the way up to 260. and Weaver didn't have anything. Puig took him deep twice.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, the books are going to need the Padres to win a couple of times a week because all the square bettors are betting against San Diego every single day. The parlays have whoever's playing the Padres in them on a night-in, night-out basis. And, you know, a win or two a week might be their ceiling, but the books are going to need it. The L.A. covers 3 out of 4 against San Diego on the run line, and the books take a beating with Dodgers money, minus 220, as you mentioned, all the way up to minus 260.
How about a 25-cent move on the Reds who get there?
Yeah, batters haven't been impressed with Clay Buchholz in a long time. 9 of the 24 batters Buchholz faced reached base. He only got 3 strikeouts. Those anti-Buchholz opinions, again, when we see the money come in like it did on Cincinnati against Clay Buchholz, all right, and now that money wins, what's going to happen next time Buchholz on the hill? The exact same thing. You can count on it. The books will adjust. The bettors will adjust more. The opposite of the scenario we just talked about involving Matt Harvey.
Yep. Orlando and Brooklyn under 227.5 to 222. Fell at 222. And there's no rhyme or reason to this stuff. I mean, this is a game that doesn't mean anything. And someone fouls down 6 with 3 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, the teams, they almost bailed out the books in this one because the books, obviously, with a 5.5-point move on the total going under, it was a late circus show in that ball game, Pauly. There were 26 points scored in the last 2.5 minutes, 11 in the last 33 seconds, and that came despite the fact that Nets never got within 5 points the entire time. And obviously, you talked about the fact it was sitting on 220 when they fouled down by 6 with 3 seconds left. But sometimes the refs start calling fouls, and that's just what they do through the end of the ball game. That being said, that was a bad result.
How about the play of the day? Milwaukee and Indiana scored 35 points in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, it's on pace the whole game, and then it dies in the fourth. And that was the opposite. When we talked about the game, and part of the rationale was that no one's going to quit. They're not going to lay down, but Milwaukee didn't have a lot of fight left by the fourth quarter of that one.
Up next, big game breakdown, Heat and the Raptors. And we'll get to the Yankees and the Orioles on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Go to SBROdds.com. Browse, compare, and shop live odds available at top online sportsbooks.
Back on SportsBit, Betting Insight today, Pauly and Teddy. Time for big game breakdown. As always, live odds, sportsbookreview.com. Let's start in the association. Heat hit the road to take on the Raptors. Toronto is 5, 206.5 the total. Throw up this graphic. Here are the standings. Battle for number 3 or 4, and the battle for 5, 6, 7, and 8. Raptors are 48 and 31, tied with the Wizards for the 3 spot. The Hawks, with the win last night, are now the 5. They have a half-game lead over Milwaukee. Now you got the Pacers who've moved up, tied with the Bulls, and the Heat would now miss the playoffs if they started today. The Heat are 38 and 40, and they have the toughest schedule of all these teams left the rest of the way. So the Heat opened 11 and 30, though. What a job by Spoelstra. 27 and 10 cents.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of sad. Because this weekend might be the last time we talk about the Miami Heat this season. You know? Because right now, they're on the outside looking in, and they have an uphill battle to get there. And that'd be a real shame, because I'm telling you, we talked about it more than once. Spoelstra's the coach of the year in the NBA, and he's not going to win it, and he deserves the award, because that Miami Heat team, they were 11 and 30. And this is one of those times where I really wish that we had a nice splice machine we can go back and get the clips. But we were talking about Miami in like December. And I remember the quote, all the Heat do every game is go out and run great plays to get open shots for players that can't make the shots. I remember that line from like 3 months ago. And then all of a sudden, they started making those shots, even with no depth. Look at the numbers. Offensive / defense, points per 100 plus minus. Since the All-Star break. This means the difference between your offensive points per 100 possessions and your defensive points per 100 possessions. There's number 1, Golden State, no surprise. There's number 2, San Antonio, no surprise. What? There's number 3, Miami, at plus 6.4. This is since the All-Star break. They went on the big run before the All-Star break. They've been good. And, of course, hitting 21 three-pointers to win at Charlotte on Wednesday night.
He's unbelievable, but it's hard to give the coach of the year to a team that won't finish at least 500. But in any event, here's Spoelstra. We weren't just chucking it. The majority of them came off coherent execution and guys being aggressive, screening, getting to the paint. and making the extra pass. Now Lowry gets all the headlines that he comes back for Toronto, but a big story is what happened while he was gone. Ibaka and Tucker, they brought them in to add front court depth, toughness, and defense, and they did it. Look at this. Toronto defense. Points per 100 possessions as always. Pre-break, 16th. Post-break, 4th, Teddy. Beautiful.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, another thing that's happened with those trade deadline deals and the fact that Lowry was out, depth became a plus. You know, this team's deep now. And Corey Joseph got plenty of starters minutes. He's good for his confidence, good for the team chemistry. And Lowry has the freshest legs of anyone right now. He showed he was ready to go against the Pistons the other night, played close to 42 minutes, and one of those games where not just one, two players reached double digits in the assist column. Lowry and DeMar DeRozan both had 10 assists in that ball game.
Here's DeRozan getting a rhythm with Kyle. That's the easy part. It's about everyone else and understanding how we play, how well we play off each other, how quickly we think on the go, trying to keep everyone on the same page. We have a couple more games to figure it out, but it feels good, end quote. This sounds like a team that's going to play everybody to get the rhythm going into the playoffs. Keep an eye on that.
It does. And, of course, you know, again, we talk about the seeding issues. I don't think it makes a lick of difference for Toronto if they're the 2 seed or the 3 seed or the 4 seed. I don't think that's their concern. And you're going to see coach after coach and team after team say the exact same thing over the last week of the NBA season. They're going to say, we're just trying to get in a rhythm. We're just trying to get in a rhythm. We're just trying to get in a rhythm. And for Toronto, it's very meaningful. A team that played without their point guard for the better part of the last, 6 weeks or so, 2 months. With Lowry on the floor, they'll get there. And obviously the Raptors, a team that we've talked about that does have legitimate upside when it comes to the postseason, although I'm sure they'll be in for a battle against this feisty Miami team tonight.
All right, think of our bet. Remember, if the Toronto's the 3, they'll meet the Celtics in the second round. So you got to think of our wager there. I think Toronto takes them out. It's a bad matchup for the Celtics.
Well, and again, when you look at the top seeds in the East, you know, the Celtics aren't playing a whole lot of defense. The Cavs aren't playing a whole lot of defense. The Toronto Raptors are. That certainly makes a case for your side of the equation there, Paul.
Up next, big game breakdown continues. We'll get to baseball, the Yankees and the Orioles in the play of the day on SportsBit. Betting Insight today on SBRPicks.com.
Research before you bet. Be sure to check out SBR Picks for the best game predictions, breakdowns, and much, much more.
We roll on SportsBit Betting Insight today. Follow us on Twitter at Pauly Howard at Teddy_covers. Yankees and the Orioles, live on sportsbookreview.com. Severino against Ubaldo. Orioles 115, 9 the total. Yankees and Orioles going to be the same story all year. Starters aren't special. And outside of Tanaka and maybe Bundy, that's all you have for good pitchers. But the bullpens are fresh and the bullpens are dynamite. Rarely will there be runs scored in the 8th or 9th inning against either of these teams, Teddy.
Well, yeah, and I mean, look at the numbers. All right, let's start with Betances, Dellin Betances for the Yanks. All right, he's not a closer racking up saves. Look at his numbers. He's had 226 career appearances. Let's compare that to Mariano Rivera at that stage of his career. And yes, the numbers look rock solid compared to the best closer of all time. So he's just a setup man. You know, remember, the Betances and then Chapman put so much pressure on teams to make things happen early in the ballgame because you're right. Once you get to the 8th against the Yankees, you're done. You know, not that it's all that different with Baltimore, but certainly with that Yankees bullpen, hard to scratch out runs late. Now, the Yankees can use guys like Luis Severino and hope that he burns at least enough inning to get in position to get to their aces in the bullpen. Now, Severino went 3-8 with a 5.83 ERA last year, but he was better than that. You know, he had a high BABIP, you know, unlucky in terms of the balls in play, 324 batting average on balls in play, and he had a low left on base percentage. So when he got into trouble, he tended to give up runs, just 64% left on base. But the fielding and independent pitching, the FIP was 4.48. The XFIP was which adjusted fielding and pitching, 4.04. So both those significantly better than the 5.83 ERA that he showed for the full season.
Well, now, what do we do here? I mean, last 2 seasons in AAA, look at this. Throw up this graphic. He was 7-0 with a 1.91, and last year he was 8-1 with a 3.24. I mean, this is either fish or cut bait right here now.
Well, yeah, I mean, we see it. I'm not going to say we see it all the time, but it's not unusual. We call it a quadruple A pitcher. A guy or a player, in fact, doesn't have to be a pitcher. A guy who can get it done at the AAA level, and every time he gets promoted, he doesn't quite make the grade at the MLB level. I remember Homer Bailey was a classic guy like that for years, where, great stuff, dominated AAA, would get called up and couldn't get it done. Severino obviously has shown enough to keep getting these chances, and with those numbers at AAA, he's going to keep getting them. But it's, fish or cut bait. Yeah, that's probably the polite way to put it for Severino right now. It's shit or get off the pot time for him in 2017.
All right, now we got Ubaldo. Came into the league 10 years ago. Big guy with great stuff. Couldn't develop consistent mechanics. 290 starts. Still a big guy with great stuff that can't develop consistent mechanics. He's been consistently inconsistent in 3 years with the Orioles. Check this out. 6-9 with a 4.81, 12-10 with a 4.11. Last year, 8-12. Look at that ERA. 8-12 with ERA of 5 and change in the final year of a $50 million contract. So the Orioles may have the quick hook if he doesn't open well. And maybe he finds a magical solution after he was sent to the bullpen last year. Changed his delivery. And after he was at a 7.38 before the break, only a 2.82 after the break.
Yeah, I mean, Baldo has been, as you mentioned, consistently inconsistent. But when you talk about what happened in the bullpen last year, again, he's not in the starting role, so opponents aren't getting 2 and 3 looks at him, which has been problematic for him. But more than anything else, the kind of thing, quote, it was a small thing. I didn't even see it. I kept going to the mound, thinking to myself, what am I doing wrong? Because it doesn't feel right. My mechanics were like I was a robot or something. I had to think about every single move I was doing instead of going to the mound, not having to think about my mechanics and just thinking about getting outs. But that was a great point you made at the top. 290 career starts in, and he's still a big guy with nasty stuff whose mechanics are spotty. That makes him something of a difficult pitcher to back. I'll tell you what, the markets never like Ubaldo Jimenez. They really don't. They consistently bet against him. They bet against him last year. And part of that, obviously, is because the results have merited. You talk about the 5.44, the 6.9, 4.81, the 10-loss, 4.11 season in 2015. Mediocre has been good for Ubaldo, but Baltimore's bullpen, just like the Yankees' bullpen, elite behind him. And the Orioles, well, the middle of that lineup's got a little bit more punch than the Yankees do as well.
All right, and that's where we're going. Money time play of the day, betting number 968, Orioles minus 115. Machado, Davis, more punch in the lineup than the Yankees right now. And we'll take our chances with the Orioles on this one. 968, play of the day. All right, huge week coming up next week. We recap what happens in the Masters. Wednesday's the final day of the regular season in the association. We got the Champions League quarters that get underway. We'll reach out to Nigel. And then you know what Thursday and Friday is. NBA Playoff Preview Edition. Always a fun show. We'll kick around the myth of the zigzag theory. Teddy, I can't wait till next week.
Oh, it's going to be a lot of fun. This week was fun. Next week even better. Be sure to tune in every single day right here on SportsBit. Betting Insight Today, your Sports Central for gamblers.